Perfect.
Yes, you are following my lead, and I love that. Leading in this world is a exponentially easy way to be when you are not carrying a lot of baggage.
Mhm.
Because the baggage, well, I mean, you just you hesitate more with baggage. Your body gets sore with baggage.
Mhm.
So how can we decide what to let go of? Um, it's a challenge. Um, it's a real big challenge, and in deciding how we manage, oh, I think understanding what is ours and what is theirs
Mhm.
is beautiful.
Yeah. A long time ago, I used to have high blood pressure, and it took me a long time to get it figured out. But when I learned to not stress about the things I had no control over, my life got way easier. When I didn't have
Yeah.
to carry everybody's worries on my shoulders, it made walking a lot easier. You know,
Oh
and
my gosh. Yeah.
I had somebody come to me today and mention, well, what are they going to say about me when I go? I said, does it matter? It speaks more of them than it does of you if they're talking badly about you when you leave.
Mm.
That's not
Isn't that the truth?
right. Like if
Isn't
somebody's
that
going to badmouth somebody after they go because they need to move on, what does that say?
oh my gosh. And then there's the whole moving on. What do we do when the big challenges come? I mean, there's been times when we've wanted to make great change in our life and then we've hesitated, and the universe has brought us so much more.
Mhm.
But it's hard when it happens, Daff.
Oh, for sure it is. I don't think that I'm not saying that it isn't, because
Yeah.
I've walked that path too, right? I mean, we all have in some way or another. We've all walked that path and that horrible thing has happened. But on the other side of that horrible thing, what wonderful opportunities can present themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. 3 days grace, right? If you can stay and just find someone to support you, very important.
Mhm.
Um, so that you can not um, enter that panic space. And in being that person, also not enter that panic space, because we can really jump into fear when we find out that someone that we love is struggling. Yeah, big time.
Funny story, cute story, just for an example. When I was pregnant years ago and I hemorrhaged and we went to the hospital, my husband called my dad and said, "This is what's going on. She just got in for emergency surgery. Have no idea what's going on. I don't know if they're going to make it or not." Dad said, "She'll be fine. Just call me and let me know what she has." And click, and hung up the phone because he knew everything was going
Yeah,
to be okay.
that's a beautiful place to be, right? Beautiful place to be. I remember going through an incredible struggle, and I called out to many of my friends here on Earth. And
Hmm.
the one person that I did connect with, Gail Doy, and she's like, Chikai, 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 Chikai. And I'm bawling. And she said, we're gonna pray. And I'm just like, we're gonna what? Right? She's like, breathe, repeat after me. And she kept on saying this prayer over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, so how is my person? And she's like, your person will be better
Hmm.
as long as you're better. Your energy is directly connected to your person.
Yeah.
Whew. So sometimes in our attempt to do more,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and here we are getting ready to talk with the beautiful, beautiful Trish Ellis about owning less and being more. Wow. Wow. Pretty powerful.
So what does that look like for you, Nancy? The owning less
Oh,
and
for
being
me,
more.
in just preparing for that this morning, I went into my bedroom and I've got a bunch of extra purses that have been gifted to me throughout my days, weeks, months, years. So I took them and I'm washing them all right now. And then I'm going to let them air dry and spend time gifting them to other people, giving me the opportunity to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful opportunities to connect by sharing what we have an abundance of. And what about you?
You know, I guess I should have thought about that while you're answering the question. For me, I believe that being more doesn't require me to have things, to have stuff and things.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I feel like walking in my shoes, the more stuff I have, the more I get weighed down with things. And more energies are attached to things. And you know how you got that cupboard with all those little knickknacks that people have gifted you, little those little beautiful trinkets in your cupboard that you don't want to get rid of because your Aunt Susie, who's no longer with us, gave it to you and she meant so much to you, but it just sits there and it doesn't do anything. you
Yeah.
know so for me, I've over the past few years have also been really releasing, letting go of things that I no longer need to hang on to. Like in my closet, I've got one closet with clothes. That's it. You know what I mean? And if I don't need it and I don't wear it, then I gift it because I know that there's somebody out
Yeah.
there that's going to need it. And I'm not that sort of person that if I don't need something, I sell it. I'm that sort of person that if I don't need it, I give it to somebody that does. Because for
Oh,
me,
those beautiful clothing swaps. The clothing swaps. I've got 3 bags
already look at that.
already.
Yeah.
3 bags. Yep. Every time someone gifts something to me, I take something out of my closet and put it in that bag.
Yep. It's just a cycle and it sends out the ripple of positivity in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. It really does. Pretty spectacular. And there's another technique that you can take your clothing hooks and hook
Mm-hmm.
them in one direction. And then if you haven't worn them in a year, then those are the ones that go.
That's a brilliant
Cool.
idea. I never thought of that.
Yeah, super cool. And
I guess
then,
I need to turn all my hangers around today.
pardon?
I said, I guess I need to turn all my hangers around today.
Yeah, that's an option. That's an option. That's an option. That's a big option. I've just got to send a quick note here. Um, hmm.
And I find the more I'm grateful for, and the more I share the abundance in my life, the more good things come into my life too, which allows
Yes.
me to be more. I mean, look at your beautiful podcast, Nancy. You're
Oh my
like, we're
gosh,
doing
right?
this. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm doing what? But you have asked me to walk this journey with you to do these podcasts. And I'm like,
Hmm.
like that face that I just made. But, so I'm doing it so I can step into being more of who I am and shining my light more
Yeah. Yeah.
to help others to do the same, to live their most authentic truths.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much that we can do when we heal our hearts. Um, there's that beautiful lake of possibility that we can add to. And then
Mhm.
that lake flows into the stream, flows into the river, and there's a million people that are helped along the way.
Well, and the thing too about the river is if you flow with the river versus trying to battle against it, owning
Mhm.
less, when you just let go and go with the flow of the river, things happen so
Yeah,
much more easily.
absolutely. Absolutely. But it's hard.
Synchronicity.
It's hard sometimes to reach out for help when you're flowing down that river, even because the river can become flowing really, really quickly,
Yeah.
um, in a way that doesn't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is first off raising your hand and saying, I need help,
Mm-hmm.
and then accepting what is thrown at you
Yeah.
without feeling guilty.
But in that same sentence, you don't have to accept all the help that is being thrown at you.
No, no, definitely. Definitely. You have to trust your thrower. Yeah.
Good metaphor.
I don't know. Thrower. What is a person that's throwing your lifeguard? Your yeah, your lifeguard. I like that one, lifeguard, because I don't like the rescuer at all.
Mm-hmm.
At all. No.
That can go into a whole semantics of words, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because if you're saying
Oh,
that you need a rescuer, then you will enter that space of being a victim.
yeah,
Being a
yeah.
victim. And here is the lovely.
Good morning, ladies.
Good
So,
morning.
am I late for some reason? I
No,
okay, because I
You
was
came
like,
at the
no,
perfect time.
okay, great. I'm like, oh my God, did
absolute
I mess
perfect
up on the
time.
time? Anyway, so nice to
No,
see you.
perfect time. Perfect time. And we were just talking about that feeling when you're going down the river of everything's flowing and you're like, wait, um, help, right? Someone throw me a life preserver because whoa, I just lost my job. And you're telling me everything is okay.
Yeah, those terrifying moments that are usually the defining moments
Mm-hmm.
that change our lives for the better. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because that you use the term life preserver, because that's a term that I use often, because that is how when we feel like we have no life preserver, the very conditioning that we've had in life that we feel protected by, when that goes, that's our greatest opportunity. And we often feel that, oh my God, something horrible is happening, and it's actually paving the way for something absolutely spectacular to
Yeah,
come. So
100%.
when we feel the
Absolutely.
most uncomfortable, that's when we're actually changing, right? Otherwise, it's just a recycling of our past. And we all want more, right?
Like when the
Yeah.
butterfly comes out of the chrysalis, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a comfortable experience to go through that, right? We feel like we're dying, but we're actually being birthed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. So true. But the birthing process is a challenge for
Well,
both birther and birthed.
oh, for sure. Well, anybody who's given birth to a baby, which I know Nancy has. I don't know about you, Daphne. Do you have kids?
I have one son, and actually, I told a quick story how when he was born 9 weeks early, and I hemorrhaged, so I went to the hospital, and they of course took me into surgery. And my husband was freaking out at the time because we had no idea what was going on, and he called my dad to say, "This is what's going on. Daphne's in the hospital." Da 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 da. And Dad said, "She'll be fine. Call me. Let me know what she has." Click, and hangs up the phone. And he's like,
Oh,
"What?" And he was freaking out because we were talking about how being there to support people, sometimes you need to be that strong. Everything is going to be okay.
for sure. For sure.
So
Life
i
is,
was i was sleeping for childbirth, so childbirth for me was easy.
yeah. Well, I wasn't for both of mine.
I
And
wasn't.
Oh my God, it was hell. It was honestly the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And I will tell you that it's such a beautiful metaphor because I'm guessing that it hurts the baby just as much, right? They have to be squeezed in this tiny little birth canal, and it's just reflective of the experiences we're going to have. But knowing how to navigate those experiences is what gets us through it, right? Where we don't want to curl up in the fetal position and not move forward.
Well, and spirit just gave me the words jaws of life.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
must feel like that, right?
yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh. So in talking about owning less and being more, what brought you to a place where you now feel that that is possible?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that, the blessing that I had in my life was I got to experience what it was like to own a lot. So I had a lot of success when I was in my marriage. And we owned multiple homes, vehicles. We were living the dream per se. And I will tell you that um, when we're in an absent phase where we think that something's missing in our life, we yearn for those things. But then the best blessing you could have is to get those things. And then you realize that in my situation, I felt more overwhelmed. Um, you know, things, everything is energy, right? So things take up a lot of
Mhm.
space. You have to maintain them, you have to insure them. I found that the more simple I live, the happier I live. And the blessing was that I had a lot of things, and to be honest, it's probably a big part of why my marriage ended. Because
Hmm.
sometimes men, I don't know if this is across the board, but their worth is equated with how well they provide.
Mhm.
So it's almost like, you know, a bird bringing back a lot of things to the nest for the baby, right?
Yeah.
They think they're doing a better job. So, by all of these things, that's probably how my husband felt. He was being a really good provider. And all of those things took away from the simplicity of where joy really comes from. So I've been on a massive journey of just letting go of more and more of my physical things, and I'm at a place now where, to be honest, if I had a backpack, like if I could put the basics of what I really use in a backpack, I would probably feel a lot more just at peace.
Mhm.
Because I don't know. I'm curious. What do you guys? How do you feel? Have you guys been through that same sort of thing where you just want to purge, get rid of things, have less in your life?
Go ahead, Nance.
Oh gosh, yes. And I mean, if you look at my healing room, um, there's quite a few things in here.
Mhm.
But this is my office. So if I took this, put it in my office, absolutely, with ease, with
Yeah,
joy, with pleasure. There's a
yeah,
there's a big, beautiful feeling about that. Big,
yeah.
beautiful
Marie
feeling.
Marie Kondo. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she wrote a book years ago. I think it's been around for quite a while. But it's really about her process is going through the things that you have in your life and really discerning how much you love those things,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And so often we hang on to things because we paid a lot of money for that, right? Oh my God, I remember how much that cost me, and I just can't bear to throw it away or donate it or
Yeah.
whatever. Sometimes it's really
Mm.
overwhelming, and that was a big part of my story. I definitely, it's funny because I've the addictions that I've had in life are always addictions that make me look better. Like being an addict who, if you're somebody who relies on alcohol or drugs, that's not a very appropriate way to look. And my upbringing, my conditioning was perfection. So buying things went hand in hand because my house was beautiful. It had all these beautiful things, and it allowed me distraction. Number one, buying is a really, really a big high, right? You go shopping, you've got that big high, you're excited, you bring those bags into your house. And then the next day you look at them and you go, it doesn't have the same oomph that it did. And, I accumulated a lot of things. I had a lot of big homes. I love decorating, celebrating every season. And over the years, I've gone through multiple purges and I still have more to do. I mean, I've whittled things down, but I go through a big process before I bring something into my house. I ask questions. Is this going to add value to my life? Or is it just another thing that's just going to sit in the corner on a hanger somewhere? And then I just know I'm going to end up getting frustrated, overwhelmed, and tossing all this stuff out or giving it away. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a journey. And it's really a journey of the ego, right? If you look at people who are hoarders per se, right? People who have purchased, or not, well, I guess purchased, but they don't want to let go of things, right? Things for people are comfort, and, you know, making decisions to let go of things is often really, really daunting for people, and they're so afraid of making a mistake,
Mhm.
right? Oh my god, if I get rid of this. It's funny because I have two kind of main roles. I work in the coaching industry, but I also work in real estate and helping coach home sellers. And the interesting part is, a big part of what deflates a the presentation of a home is too many things, right? Clutter, all of that stuff.
Yep.
And you know and with my coaching background, I go through the process of, okay, like, let's pack this up. And people are resistant to letting go. It's like, oh, my mother gave me that, or that's my grandmother's, right? So we have meanings attached to all of our things, and that's really probably the area that we have to challenge, right? Is the meanings that we've given things.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming you guys, I'm seeing some heads nod, so you can relate to those things.
Well, actually, that's what we were mentioning just before you came on. Actually, we were talking about owning less and being more, and having that cupboard that has all those little knickknacks and trinkets that Aunt Sally gave you 30 years ago, and she's no
Yeah,
longer with us. But it's so important, and you have to keep it. All it does is it collects dust, and really, you
yeah,
don't need it.
yeah, yeah. I've gone through, and I have some really good tips actually for people who are struggling with that.
Well, could
So
you
for
please share those with us?
Oh, absolutely. So my mom lived in our family home for 60 years.
Hmm.
And a year and a half ago, she moved into a retirement place. And I was in charge of getting rid of 60 years of things.
Mm.
So I became an expert overnight. And, you really realize, oh, yeah, actually, I have some really good examples to share with you. So so I had to discern what to get rid of. And the interesting part is, my mom took all of her favorite things, right? And it was overcluttered. She had a small little apartment suite in a retirement place. She didn't have a lot of room, but she stuffed that room full because she had never had to purge with anything in 60 years. I mean, she was pretty good. She wasn't a hoarder by any means, but she took all those things. And then, just, I think it was 3 months after she left, she had a fire in her suite. So she lost the vast majority of her things. And the funny part is, my mom still complains, I lost everything. And, I think that we have things happen to challenge our beliefs and our attachments to things. And this is the wildest thing. So, just a few months after that, my daughter went through a thing where she was living in an apartment. And the funny part is, she was storing a lot of my mom's things in her apartment because my mom had lots of nice things in her home. So, she had lots of my mom's stuff kind of packed into her apartment. And what happened was, she had an asbestos issue in her apartment. So her landlord, a big company, went in and tried to do a covert renovation. And what they did is, they basically exposed an entire building to asbestos. So they had to have an abatement. So my daughter lost pretty much all of her things. So like, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I'm sandwiched between my mom losing all of her things, my daughter losing all of her possessions. And I was able to unpack it more so with my daughter because she is younger and more open-minded. And what we realized is that none of that stuff
Mhm.
makes a difference, and I think that those things happen, whether it's a fire, whether we lose things, that we learn how resilient we are,
Mhm.
that things, and actually, to be honest, my daughter probably has more freedom now without all of those things. She's had to rebuy all of her stuff, but now, and I kind of coach her. I'm like, okay, do you really need that? Because do you really need to get back up to that volume of things? So I think that things happen to challenge us.
Yeah.
And just to getting back to one of the tips that you said, like, how do you get through this? What I found, because I got a lot of stuff from my mom, and my place got really full. And the funny part is then I had an issue in my place. This is funny. It's just making me remember all the things that happened to me in the last year. Then I had an issue with mold exposure in my
Mhm.
apartment. So I had to move out of my apartment. So I had to go through a lot of my stuff that I had taken from my mom, and I had, my grandmother's apron that she made. I came upon those things. And you know what I did? I took photographs of them, and they take up no space. And I took, far away, close up, and I have a remembrance. So, and because otherwise it just sits somewhere dormant, taking up space. Like, things take up space in our life.
Yeah.
And everything that we own, actually, it's funny because I did a post the other day. It really owns us. We think we have ownership on things, but it owns us. Now
Yeah.
we have to house it, right? And the funny part is, so many people, where I'm seeing a big trend in just house sizes, right? Like, when I was married, and what success was the bigger the house you had, the more successful you were.
Yeah.
And it gives you an invitation to store a lot of shit. So we had tons of stuff. And over the years, I mean, I'm that person who collects everything for my kids, every little drawing that they did, all of that stuff. And what I did is I narrowed it down, and I made like a bin for each of my kids of the most precious things. And I took a picture of all of the things that were too big to house. They, you know,
Oh,
you
that's
don't
so
need, like, I
precious.
was that crazy person that I kept like the best little outfits, right? Like, just so many things. I was a very sentimental person.
I
Did you
still ha-
keep hair too? My mom did that. I
Oh
found that
yes,
really
yeah,
creepy.
I've got their hair. I did keep that.
I was gonna say I still have Colton's first outfit that he wore home from the
Yeah.
hospital, and because he was so small, my mom had to go buy a doll that we could like
Oh,
take the outfit off the doll to put on him.
wow.
Oh,
He
Yeah.
wasn't even 5 pounds yet. I still
Yeah.
have that outfit.
You know what's
I'm
interesting?
on I'm, I'm on the fence with that. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence. Like, when it comes to my kids' stuff, um, I could put it all in a bin. I purged that. I really, really purged that.
Nice.
Um, a big bin, but a bin.
Yeah.
And not the kind that fits on your driveway, okay? I
Yeah.
did good with
A
that. But
tote. A tote is what
to
you need.
a tote. But
So with you talking about this stuff,
ask me
Trish,
about the books.
mm, for me, I still have that. Do you remember the book that we used to have that we put special memories in from every grade that we went through school?
Yes. Do you still
I
have
have that
yours?
book for me.
I have mine too.
Okay, so it's not that bad. Okay.
Yeah, no, no. I think there's certain things, and you could also translate that into photographs too. You could make that
Yes.
digital, right? If you took a picture of everything, and then poof, it doesn't take up space. So I'm a big believer that digital it's beautiful because it doesn't take up any space, and you can access it on your phone, your computer. You just have to make
And
sure
you can
you're
turn it into a
storing.
video or a movie or
Yeah.
a TikTok talk.
Yeah.
Trish, you should see the books that Nancy's got in her place. It's like Tetris. She's got them all strategically placed. It's beautiful.
So when you say books, are you meaning like books that you purchased, or okay, so like a book collection? I know that's a hard one for me too, because I've whittled down my books. I probably have like 6 cases of books. I have my stuff in storage right now because after my apartment mold thing, I temporarily moved in with my daughter. And the funny part is I've just been really enjoying I lived alone for 5 years. So now I'm with people and I'm like, oh my God, I like being in a family again. So anyway, so my stuff
Mhm.
is in storage and I took probably maybe about 10 of my favorite books. I brought them here and I put the rest in storage. So
Beautiful. Wow.
yeah, life is
Yeah,
so
but
interesting, right?
the physical feeling of books is very different
Yeah.
than the Kindle.
Yeah.
I do like
I don't like
listening.
Kindle. Yeah,
I've got
I
some
love
on Kindle.
Audible.
I love
Yeah.
audibles. I've got some on Kindle, like I've got the body one, Daff.
A nice seagull, the secret language of your body.
I've got that one on the iPad.
But you need
I've
to have the
got
physical
Witch.
copy of that one too.
No, I gave that away. I sold that. I sold that for $10. I've got the Witch book on Kindle. I'm doing really good. Like I've got like 4 or 5. I'm so proud of myself. Right? Because
Good
I
for
used to
you.
have a similar life to Trish. And I remember when I was leaving the lake house, my ex-husband and I had gotten into a barn buster. I mean, barn buster. And he'd come home late, he'd come home drunk, and I was angry. And he told me to pack my shit and get out. So I'm like, fine. So I started packing my stuff, and then he kept on badgering me with really rude, bullying comments. So I started throwing the books at him, like just flying them across the room. And one of them was the half a book of yoga. That's about that thick, right? And I was just firing. So holding on to books may have some protection
Yeah,
for me.
interesting.
Yeah, possibly.
I think there's a lot of merit. It's funny that you say that. I think there's a lot of merit in looking at what are the things that we hold on to, right?
Mhm. It's
And so
fun.
far, I mean, Daphne said, kids things. I can definitely relate to that too. Because I think our
Mhm.
kids, like, that's such a monumental part of our life, right? Everything changed when we had kids. So I
Oh,
think we try to hold on to those things.
Well, you know what's funny is I could take that outfit now, and the outfit's probably smaller than his head, like his entire head. I'm like, you were this big.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I keep it.
Well, a perspective, right? And it's just I think anything that we do hold on to has a lot of meaning for us. But the big part is we have to look at, what is the cost of holding on to all of those things, right?
Mhm.
Because, it's kind of like moderation, right? If we do it in moderation, then it's so much then we honor ourselves rather than holding on because the ego is very much about holding on to things,
Mhm.
right? It's like
Oh, yes.
it, and we've all learned so much about, when our brains were developing, we learned that, you know, the more things you had as a little elementary school person, right? If you came to school with something from show and tell and it was really cool and nobody else had it, right? You got a lot of attention. So those things are wired into us, right? it's
Mhm.
it's like we have this ideal that we're protected, we have more value.
Okay, this way. This way. There,
Yeah.
I'm pointing at Nancy now. Like, I'm a little bit jealous of Nancy's beautiful earrings she's wearing right now.
Oh,
Maybe
they're
she'll tell
so
us about
cute.
them.
Oh, are they little candy corns?
They're
No, they're
ducks.
ducks.
Oops,
Oh,
there
I
we go.
couldn't see from that far. Oh my
It's a
gosh, how
duck
sweet.
you. Duck
Oh
you.
my god, okay, that is
So
crazy.
a lady that I worked with, I've got a whole bunch of ducks in a row on a really cute picture. So all my ducks in a row. And then I've got a few gifts from friends. So because the place that I was at in my last corporate experience was very indigenous, we were cautioned about saying certain words. So duck you was the closest that we could get to
Oh,
certain
okay.
phrases. So it was a fun experience. And in learning to let go of 35 years in administration,
Wow.
wow, big step, big step. But I was blessed by a series of events that came to bring me to a return to the joy, which makes me so much happy, so much more happy, so much happier, like ecstatically happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
You know
and
what I always
go ahead.
you know what I always found really interesting because it's so interesting to watch. I think we're at a big awakening right now. We're seeing so many changes with humanity that people are waking up to, it's interesting because I've witnessed a lot of people go through a thing where they go to jobs that they hate, right? They
Mhm.
complain, and every day they're like, and they're taking stress leave or they're exhausted with something, and they live in a big huge mansions, and I'm like, man, don't you see it? Like, because that was my life. But this is the grace of my soul has always kept me in check with, like everybody who would have looked at my marriage. I was with my husband for 30 years and we had 2 kids. Everybody was like, you have the best life. And he was a really good dude. Like, I didn't, obviously every relationship has things, but we were on a different trajectory.
Mhm.
And I've always been very true to how I feel. That is the first place I go to check in. It's like, how does this feel in me? And we had a beautiful life together, and he wanted to buy more things, be busy all the time, and I wanted a simple life, and I was done with all of that stuff. So we went our separate ways. But what I've witnessed in other people, it's that complaining of, I hate my job, and I'm like, well, just buy a smaller house. And maybe you could only work 2 days a week, or maybe you don't even have to work
Mhm.
if you could downsize. But we have such a hard time because, the ego has equated so much value in our things and how we present to the world.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, it's not an easy thing to let go of when it's got its clutches in you, because I've gone through multiple levels of having to purge things. I didn't realize how much value I had wrapped up in my own perspective. Trish always has a beautiful big house, right? And then I went through a lot of different stages where I was living more simple and in smaller places. Always nice because I love having nice things around me, but it's almost like we have to peel off those layers that we
Mhm.
formed to get, value. We thought, okay, well, I have more value now because I have a position, right, at work. I have some sort of a status. I own this. So all of those
Mhm.
outer things are what humans use to assert their value. But this is the
Thank
interesting
you so
part.
much.
And I've coached so many people. I had one lady who was, this is a long time ago, she was in her 60s and she got her PhD, and she was going after all of this. And going into it, I mean, obviously I supported her on this. This was her goal, but we examined all of that stuff. And the day that she got her cap and gown, right? You'd think that the
Mm.
sea would part, and it's like, I have arrived. And I will tell you that the lesson that her soul needed was to realize that she hadn't arrived,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because the joy is not in the actual certificate.
Yeah.
The joy is supposed to be in the experience, studying something that you love,
Mhm.
contributing. That's the joy. Like, I get to
Mhm.
practice something now that is so close to my heart, and I love doing this and helping people. But if we're doing it for the certificate or for how we look to other people, we're screwed. And
Oh, for sure.
Well, I was going to ask Trish, would you explain to us a little bit more about what it is you do? Because if people don't know who you are and what you do, they'd like
yeah,
to know.
yeah. Well, after my divorce, I was in the healthcare profession for 25 years. And for whatever reason, I didn't want to, I wanted a change. And I was lucky enough that I was in a good financial position that I could go back to school. I could do
Yeah.
whatever I wanted. I went back to school for coaching. And the reason I did coaching, this is back when it was not it wasn't,
Yeah.
coaches are everywhere now. But back then it was a very, it was a new profession. So I went back to school for a year, and I moved to Kelowna, and that's where I met Nance. We had a
Yeah.
common friend
Yeah.
in Kelowna. And you came to one of my retreats back then. So that
I
was
did. I did. Dawn and I went to the retreat. Yes. Yes.
So that was like 13 years ago. So I've been a coach for the last 13 years, and
So it
just
was
it
before Emily passed away.
no, it was right after. How
Right
well, I
after?
started when I met, maybe it was after. It was definitely after Emily passed away
Okay.
that I met you.
Okay. Okay.
So I basically
Yes.
work in an industry, pardon me, that saved my life. Because when I went through my divorce, I was going through a big awakening for myself. It was like, I had met my husband at the age of 15. I
Mm.
had two kids. My kids were grown up. They were, I think, 18 and 16 when we separated. So, or no, maybe they were older, because I was alone for the first time in my life when I went through my divorce. I'd never, I went from dating my husband to getting married, living,
Mm.
the dream.
Yeah.
And I was alone for the first time. And I just, deep in my soul, evolving, knowing who I am
Mhm.
without all the things is the plight of my life. And I had a lot of suffering in my life. My childhood, I was lucky enough to have a really great husband. He was a great provider. He was smart. We were a great team together. So our struggles weren't financial. But as soon as we separated, I had to be with all of that pain that got pushed down
Mhm.
from a big part of my childhood that I'd never addressed. And coaching was great because I started to learn a model of asking myself questions, right? Like I said, when I was in school, I would have my little textbook and my notes, and I would, I'd be the coach one minute and then I'd be the client. And I instantly, and why I fell in love with the profession, I was like, oh my God, you just ask simple questions. And I had so many profound insights that helped me move on. So I've been doing this for, well, like I said, 13 years. And you know, we are living in such incredible times. The world is waking up. And the challenge that we had years ago with evolving and healing was that we were limited to our local library, a magazine, a book. Now we just open up your computer and go on YouTube. You have access to some of the most incredible experts on the planet.
Yeah.
And I've worked with so many people. Like I am a total, like I love learning. I'm a seeker to the core. My everyday, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start early is every morning. I usually don't book anything early. It is my contemplation time. I wake up, feed the dogs, I have my coffee, and I journal. Whatever I dreamt about, it's like I want to know who I am. I
Mhm.
want to get to the core of, I just want to liberate myself from all of the masks, all of the protective patterns that I've been wearing. And that is my, you asked about, who are you? So the people know I am a master at seeing patterns, largely because I had so many. I grew up I grew up in a beautiful home. Like my parents were loving. I didn't grow up with abuse, but I grew up with mental health problems. My
Yeah.
dad was suicidal for most of my childhood. And a regular occurrence was he would go to his gun cabinet and take his gun, go out to the garage, and we never knew if he was coming back in from the garage. And he eventually did take his life through that means. But when you're, young child and your survival, your safety depends on the well-being of your parents,
Yeah.
it was a massive tsunami in
Mhm.
my nervous system. And my mom developed a lot of compensatory patterns to handle
Yeah.
the stress of dealing with the suicidal husband. And, my big thing was after my dad's death, I was 13 at the time, I was terrified of losing my mom.
Mhm.
So I developed some horrific patterns of taking care of everybody else
Mhm.
because I was so afraid of my mom. You know, I equated sadness to killing yourself.
Yeah.
So I became a coach at 13.
Yeah.
And my empathic abilities to sense everybody's feelings would be like if I met you at a party and you shared some little tiny story about some challenge, it was like instantly, like, and on a very unconscious level, right? I would be that person I was the rescuer, I was the
Yeah.
coach, and what I learned mostly is I sacrificed my own well-being, right?
Yes.
I took care of
Yes.
Mhm.
everybody in my environment. And whoever had me in
Yes.
their life was, and it was funny because I was going to say blessed, but not really. Because when somebody
Mhm.
swoops in to
Mhm.
take care of your needs, they clip your wings.
Yeah.
And you think,
Yes. They do.
like my kids probably largely grew up with a mom who was such an expert at taking pain away from them.
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
it doesn't help people actually. And fortunately, I've done a lot of healing and my kids are both in, like, they're living nice lives that are still growth oriented because that's why we're here.
Mhm.
But um yeah, I learned a lot about the human psyche largely because after my experience with my dad, I was convinced that my life would end in suicide too. That it was almost like, how parents model
Mhm.
behaviors for their kids. For me, it was deep down, I always thought like I was that kid that felt, and probably I was going to say I felt massive anxiety as a child.
Mhm.
Like, I remember my mom taking me to the hospital, to doctors, because I could not breathe. I was like, I can't get enough air in me. They thought they
Mm.
x-rayed my lungs. They didn't, back in the 60s, they didn't stop to think, well, maybe it's a psychosomatic issue. She's overwhelmed because she's in an environment that is terrifying the shit out of her. But they didn't recognize that. And I developed so much anxiety, fear, and I know what I was going to say. The the it was probably a saving grace for me. I thought, you know what, if it gets so bad, I'll just kill myself like my dad did. That's my way out. Like, I can always kill myself. that is not a fun that is not a fun thought
Gosh.
for any human being. It goes against the grain of everything it's
Mhm.
to live.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I got dealt with an intensive upbringing that honestly is, I wouldn't change a thing. And that's
Mm.
the interesting part. That's when we know that we've done a lot of healing work, because I look at who I've become as a result of those experiences,
Mhm.
and the compassion that I have for human beings. I've reeled in the codependency where I'm rescuing everybody. I can very much support people without rescuing them. Hence,
Beautiful.
Yes.
that's what coaching teaches you. And I've learned to be with my own emotions, which I really believe is the key to healing. Because when we can't
Mhm.
be with the sensations that arise in our body, we look for, behaviors, we look for things, we develop patterns, right? So that we don't have to feel this stuff. But
Mhm.
that's what gold is. The more we can be with the sensations that arise in our body, have an understanding of how to manage our thoughts, that is where the gold is. And that's really what I do. I work with people who, in anything that is any part of them, they're unconscious, that is taking them in a direction that is not pleasing to them, right? Whether it's they are in relationships with partners that are not serving them. They have struggles with their finances, right? They want to, I'm working with a triathlete right now who's training for, she's a pro athlete. So it's interesting because it's really about understanding our unconscious and what drives us. And once you start to understand those unconscious patterns that are driving our thoughts or actions or behaviors, then we can start to disassemble, right? Well, first of all, you have to bring awareness, right? Because most people have no idea,
Mhm.
right? We can see it on our friends, right? We're like, oh, there she goes again,
Yeah.
right? Doing that thing that she always does. But that person doesn't see it because you can't see the picture from inside the frame, right? So that's where coaches come into play, right? Where we can work with somebody who's trained to see those patterns,
Mhm.
and that can help us, bring awareness and to start to, um, what's the word? I guess disconnect from those patterns, because our patterns are our life preservers,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So we're all wearing these unconscious life preservers that we think are saving us, but they are actually keeping us in the depths of
Yeah.
despair. The very thing that you think is helping you is actually causing your struggles. So it's a very delicate process of working with the unconscious. So
Mhm.
so it's to help people to actually feel safe enough to not do that thing that they've always done, right? Because, and I'll
Mhm.
just give your viewers just this is just such a great little learning concept. So from the age of 6, or pardon me, 7 and under, that's where our unconscious is forming.
Mhm.
So when a child is birthed into the world, it's not really a blank slate. We come with DNA and our ancestors' patterns and stuff, but for the most part, the environment that you're in,
Mhm.
the psyche needs to learn how to exist in that
Yeah.
environment. So what it does is there's like an open gate. So we're in a theta state with our brain waves. So any of the experiences you have from 7 and under, your psyche, your unconscious is taking very close examination of. And it's seeing, okay, well, in this circumstance, okay, well, if I'm quiet, or if I'm, so it starts to connect the dots with what keeps you safe. So by the time you're 7, that aspect, that foundational psyche is built in. And then the gate closes. And once that gate closes, we go into the world, and you'll see kids, actually, it's so interesting to watch because they reach a certain age where they start to be self conscious, right? We see them when they're young and they're playing and dancing and singing and acting silly and throwing tantrums. And then one day comes where they're not doing that anymore. They're like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of my body. I can't sing because they've heard from their parents, right? Don't do that. You look stupid, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So we take that conditioning, that childhood conditioning, and we move it outward into our, adolescence. And all of those patterns that we learned as kids are in us, and they are still operating. So that whatever saved your ass as a kid is killing your ass as an adult,
Right.
right? So we have to start, and that's the fun of it. And this is where the psyche gets interesting, because the mind is always after a destination. It's like, okay, once I get these patterns, or once I get this fixed in my life, then I'll be healed and I'll be happy and safe.
Mhm.
Doesn't work that way. We have to find joy in the
Yeah.
process, right? And that's, and it's so fun because that's where I am right now. I've done so much of this work on myself, and I'm in this place where I am really aware of the process of life, of just the beauty of sipping a coffee and interacting with my kids, or like being present. I think that's really what we're all after. Because typically, the more of our ego, the more of the conditioning that we integrate, right? The more of our true self we integrate, the joy comes from just being alive and not needing to have things.
Yeah.
And that's really a large part of where I've gotten to. And I'm like, oh my God, it is so yummy.
Mhm.
to not need, and there's still certain, I definitely haven't arrived at the full lack of ego, but I've integrated so much. And it's interesting to see my own stuff coming up, right? Because there's still more. And I'm like, oh my God, when will the pain end?
There's always another layer.
Yeah,
There's
it's like the
always.
onion, right? You're just like, oh shit, there's another part of myself but that's what we came forth for. Our souls came for the richness of the experience. And, Nance's story is beautiful because you've definitely, you've been through a lot. And, like what a gift.
I kind of won the lottery on the shit show. So yeah, it's
And what a
okay.
gift that you
What a
can
gift.
stand for joy.
What a gift. I
Because
mean, Daphne's blessed to be one of my beta readers for my memoir. And it's not it's not your typical memoir. Because Daphne cares for my mom as a compassionate caregiver, and she also does the beautiful laser treatments on her. But we've known each other for over 8 years, and there's things that she's learning in the reading process. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I've got even a bigger admiration for your mom."
Mhm.
Like, wow, because it's in sharing of how I got to be who I am, and the journey, the travels that I lived, um, without censoring too much. I was
Well,
kind and considerate, but I certainly didn't censor a lot.
no, you didn't. And that's okay because that's exactly how life is. And when we sugarcoat and censor things, what's the point?
Mhm.
Well, truth is powerful. And, nobody benefits, as we start to take the masks off and we like share the hidden stuff, the shadow stuff that doesn't make us look good to society. I'm seeing a massive trend we're seeing the vulnerability is strength.
Mhm.
And the more people who are being more vulnerable, being honest, that is where the freedom is,
Mm.
lying and being pretentious that everything's okay. That is the portal to suffering. And what I love about it's interesting because I actually really don't know a lot about you, Daphne. So I'm going to have to watch some of these programs to get a better
Or
idea.
and
And
um,
right
you
or
can choose to go on Amazon and get Daphne's memoir, which is You Do You.
Okay,
And
okay,
I was blessed
I
to have,
will.
and I wrote the foreword.
I love it.
Mhm.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
and what's beautiful, and I want to highlight something that I think is a really powerful message here with all three of us. So,
This is going
people
to be the
who are
mic drop moment.
yeah,
It is.
people who are in the healing profession, we are in this profession for a reason.
Yeah.
It's because we've been through a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And when you've experienced pain, your greatest motivation is to help other people in pain.
Yeah.
So the backstory of anybody who's in psychology, therapy, coaching, whatever it is, some sort of healing modality, is that our hearts are in this,
Yeah.
right? This is
Oh
something that's
gosh.
passionate.
Wow. So true. I was talking yesterday about putting skin in the game.
Yeah.
When you put your heart in the game and your skin, it's
And
so
and
much more.
oh, and you know what's beautiful? So this is the other part that I want to share, that a lot of people feel hard done by when they've been through a lot of intensive stuff.
Mhm.
And I've
Mhm,
been there. I've been in that. I'm like, why
mhm.
me? Why do I have to go through so many painful things? And I will say that I always see, souls as coming forth for a game of checkers or chess.
Mhm.
And we're all playing chess. And the blessing of playing chess and having a difficult life is that it forces you when it gets so extreme that it's either, like for me it was either I die or I learn how to manage my mind.
Yeah.
So that's where it was for me. So people who have mediocre lives, that on the surface they haven't had a whole lot of trauma, they're not seeking. And I'm like, this is gold. This is gold. Like, we had to hit the depths of despair to put us on that trajectory. So when I work with someone who's been through a lot, I'm like, you have no idea, like, what your soul positioned you in this experience so you would wake up in this lifetime, that you would have experiences so that you could actually learn how to manage your mind. Because most people who haven't been through a lot of suffering, they've never learned any of these, they don't know about like, we are at a leading edge in understanding how the brain works, like at a
Oh, yeah.
very eerie level, where we're being played by marketers. And like, we have to, this is a time where self-awareness has never been more valuable. And people who've been through trauma, you got to be self-aware. You have to be, or you're recycling the same patterns, the same shit, and you're hurting really bad. Right?
Amen. I
Wow.
mean, you say amen. I mean, that's all you can say, because everybody watching this right now is thinking about their own lives. Yeah, wow. Is thinking about their own lives and the different things they've been through and the different things that have come from it. I mean, I was talking with a beautiful friend this morning who, is going through a difficult time of healing recovery, and she was worried about how things are going to go. But she thanked me this morning for helping her see the flip side of it, to see the reverse side of it from the other end, that she won't be there anymore, but look at all the opportunities that she can create from it.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, Trish.
And an example that I give everybody I work with, and this is something that's so simple, but the mind does not see it this way. So I always say that, we think that we are coming here for perfection, right? Like, we want the perfect life. But if you look at, I give this example, I'm like, imagine going into a movie theater and you're watching a movie, a 3-hour feature film, and you're watching a group of people on a yacht, and they are, families, and everybody's in love, and they're all beautiful, full of abundance. They just stop from port to port in France, and they go shopping, and they're eating the finest foods, and they're tapping each other on the shoulder. I love you, honey. And it's just this beautiful fest of perfection.
Yeah.
As the credits roll at the end of that movie, nobody would go back to see another sequel or anything like it, because there was no expansion. We come for the expansion, but the mind says we're coming for perfection. And if you really look at that, like, think about all the movies that are like the blockbuster, Academy Award winning shows. It's the hero's journey. We are here to have a perceived problem, and that's really the value of the ego. The ego is not this bad thing. It is created by our creator to allow us an experience to go through life and basically expand, right? We have to have a perception of inadequacy in order to go in a direction. If we all arrived in divine perfection, where we felt, I am perfect, I am whole, right? You would just eat, poop, play,
Right.
and there would be no, and really, even playing would be like, it would, there's
You wouldn't
no,
even do that.
there's no thirst for
I don't
life.
even think there would be no playing either.
Yeah, it's just, if you were you would be like a Zen Buddhist master, right? Wise, you'd have wisdom because you were whole, right? You would understand that there's no inadequacy in you, but we're here for the hero's journey.
Yeah.
So, but when the ego is operating in us, we're not going to feel that. We're going to be like, get me out of this hellhole, right?
Well, you know how everybody has, or there's many people in life, they do New Year's resolutions. Okay, so I gotta tell this story. So my New Year's resolution was to continue being the weirdo that I am, which is okay, because weird stands for wildly enlightened individual recreating my dreams. And my goal this year is to experience as many new things as I can. That's my goal this year.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Things
My
that are
word
fun.
for this year is sparkles.
I love it. Mine is ease.
There you go.
Ease.
Because
Yeah.
I've been doing hard for so long, and I'm like, and I it was probably 2 years ago. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with hard.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
ease and joy, right? Ease and joy.
Right.
Yeah.
What I love about
Beautiful.
your resolution, it's funny. A lot of people, I've never been a real, I've hated goals. I hate setting goals. I'm like, and a lot of people, depends on what kind of a mind you have, right? We hear these stories of, I fulfilled my goal. And I always look at it as, and I think they're doing new research to see or to actually prove that all of this goal setting is not working in the at the capacity, because a lot of people, we set these goals, you don't meet them, right? If you don't have the capacity to know how to meet them, it actually fulfills, it's like it lowers your mental capacity to believe that you can actually accomplish your goals. So I say, before
Mhm.
someone sets a goal, you better know how to position yourself to meet that goal, because it can actually
Yeah.
do you greater harm,
Yeah.
right? If that makes
Yeah.
sense. But just the playfulness, because what we really want, like, the interesting part is we think that what we want is the goal. I want to, I don't know, write my book. Let's just say that, right? It depends on what the motivation between, writing the book, just like the person with the PhD, right? Oh my God, are you holding the book up to say, I wrote the book, look at me, I'm better for it? Or, oh my God, my story is going to touch the hearts of people, right? I loved
Mhm.
that I could, share my story and help other people. So it's really, we have to look at what is the purpose of what we want in life,
Mhm.
and look at the bigger picture of why we want the thing that we want. I think that's the more important part of actually setting the goal. It's like, why do I want that? And then how do I set myself up for success
Yeah.
to actually meet with that goal?
100%. I love to see Nancy just smiling. I can.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's
this is great. I'm just thinking, I'm looking in my mind as to, okay, so when are we going to book Trish back?
no, you're so sweet. Well,
But
you
this
guys,
was so much fun.
it's so much fun to talk to like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
Because, we all have a common bond, right? And that's something happened in our lives that led us on a journey of helping other people. And I think we're living in very unprecedented times where the work of all of us has never been more important than it is now. That the
Absolutely.
shadow is rising as more light comes into this planet, the darkness is being more exposed, and that's scaring the shit out of a lot of people who don't know who don't know how to work with those parts of
Yeah.
themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's, I think, a very auspicious time for humanity and all of the light workers on this planet. Our voices need to be louder, we need to be more
Yep.
present, and as we work through our stuff, right, the more we work through, the more we can help other people. So
Oh,
cheers to both of you. And
thank you.
it's just such an honor to see all of the people who are showing up. Like, well, I don't know, do you guys watch YouTube a lot? Are you
Yes,
YouTubers? Okay,
often.
that is my staple. Like, I usually fall asleep listening to some, like, I have favorite people that I really admire, and just the messages I want more in my consciousness. And there are so many people on the planet right now that our
Yes.
voices are getting stronger, and it's all free,
Mhm.
like, there's no excuse for people not to be evolving at warp speed. Because if you're struggling, all you have to do is punch in whatever the topic is that you think you identify with,
Mhm.
and you will get experts showing up
Mhm.
to guide
Yes.
you, right? And it's
Yes.
like nobody has to suffer,
Mhm.
right? We're living
Yeah.
in such it, and it's interesting because it can feel like it's so intense and horrible. Like, oh, the world's going to shit, all of this stuff. There is more light coming into the planet, and the
Mhm.
best way to describe it is, you look at your house and you think, oh, my house is clean. Well, you shine one of those big, high-powered flashlights, and you look in, and you're like, "Holy shit! Okay, all those cobwebs, all those little
Mhm.
purples. I didn't see that before." That's what's happening in our planet
Mhm.
right now. We're
Yeah.
the darkness is being exposed, and it's not about freaking out and oh my god, the sky's falling. It's about just knowing that we have to meet those feelings in us,
Yeah.
those fears. And if
Mhm.
whatever you meet, that's where your power is. It's being able to see, ground yourself, parent yourself, calm yourself, right? Lots of this is the time, unfortunately, in where we live, it's cold and snowy. We were so blessed these last 2 weeks or 2 months to have such nice weather. But getting out in nature, sunlight, all of those
Mhm.
things, good, healthy food, good conversations, not talking about what's wrong with the world,
Mhm.
talking about how we can empower
Yeah.
ourselves, right? So we have
Beautiful.
massive power to work through this, right? But we, it's like a hero movie. We're being called to step up into our greatest power.
Well, and this
And
is where I want to say thank you, Trish, and thank you, Nancy. Thank you for being here and doing this today.
both of
This
you
was
for this
fun.
beautiful platform. We wouldn't have had
This
this
was really,
opportunity.
really fun. Oh, I just love it. So I love you ladies. I'm so, so grateful. My heart is completely full, and I look forward to next time. I really, really look forward to
Yes,
next time. So I love you to the moon and back, and peace out.
absolutely. And send me the link to your book, Daphne. I want to read
Okay.
it. Okay,
Okay.
much love to
Guaranteed.
you. All the best. Take care.
Oh,